die.
Got to have some salts on your burrito.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
The story begins in 1972, as the Vietnam War nears its end. The battlefield is littered with casualties, and amid the chaos, we meet Nick, an American soldier who has survived the horrors of war but has lost his eyesight. Disoriented and frightened, Nick searches desperately for his comrade, Frank. But fate intervenes. Nick stumbles into a hidden trap and is captured by local villagers. Surprisingly, the villagers show him compassion. They treat his wounds using herbal medicine, feed him, and care for him. As his condition improves, one of the villagers begins to train Nick in swordsmanship, teaching him to rely entirely on his hearing. Over time, Nick develops incredibly heightened auditory perception. He can detect even the faintest of sounds around him. Fast forward 20 years, Nick now lives in the United States, carrying a cane that secretly conceals a sword. One day, while eating at a restaurant, he witnesses some men harassing a woman. He can't tolerate such cruelty and intervenes. Despite his blindness, he swiftly and expertly defeats the attackers using his skills. Meanwhile, Frank's life has taken a dark turn. He had married a woman named Laura, and together they had a son, Billy. Frank initially worked as a chemical engineer in Reno, and life was stable. But things changed when he became a frequent visitor to a casino in Las Vegas owned by Kevin McCree. He developed a gambling addiction and quickly fell into massive debt. In desperation, Frank agreed to manufacture illegal drugs for Kevin. Eventually, he divorced Laura and married Annie, a woman who worked at the casino. Still, the burden of his illegal activities weighed on him, and he tried to quit. They dangled Frank upside down from a rooftop, demanding he create more entertaining drug variants. When he refused, Kevin escalated matters by abducting Lynn and Billy. At this point, Nick arrives at Lynn's house in search of Frank. Lynn tells him they are no longer together and gives him Frank's new address in Reno. Suddenly, there's a loud knock at the door. Posing as police, Kevin's men barge in. One thug, Slag, grabs Lynn by the neck. Billy rushes in to help but is knocked out when Slag smashes his head into the wall. Slag then shoots Lynn. Enraged, Nick draws his hidden sword and eliminates all the attackers except Slag, who escapes. As Lynn lies dying, she asks Nick to take care of Billy. When Billy regains consciousness, Nick tells him they're going to find his father. To spare him more pain, he lies, saying Lynn is safe at home. They board a bus to Reno. Frank, upon reading about Lynn's death and Billy's disappearance in the newspaper, suspects Kevin is behind it. He reluctantly agrees to resume drug production. Meanwhile, Nick and Billy's relationship is strained. Billy mocks Nick's blindness and even attempts to steal his wallet. Nick notices but says nothing. Later, Billy finds a photo of Frank and Nick from their army days, working in the copper mines during the war. Curious, Billy asks about Nick's blindness. We then enter a flashback to their final day in Vietnam. The unit was excited to go home, but their camp was attacked by insurgents. Nick and Frank devised a plan. Nick would sneak close to the enemy while Frank provided cover. Things went wrong, and amid the firefight, a nearby explosion blinded Nick. Despite the accident, Nick never blamed Frank. Later, Nick and Billy stop at a gas station. Billy tries to call his mother but is caught by Nick, who finally tells him the truth about Lynn's death. Devastated, Billy runs into a field with Nick chasing after him. Both get separated. Slag and his men find Billy first and hide him in a hut. They then search for Nick, who uses his combat skills to silently take them down one by one. When he reaches the hut, Slag fires at him and misses. Nick collapses the structure by cutting its supports, confronts Slag in battle, and rescues Billy. Slag survives thanks to a bulletproof vest. Kevin, learning his men failed to retrieve either Billy or Nick, becomes increasingly agitated. The next day, Nick and Billy hitch a ride and reach Frank's house. Annie greets them warmly, but as they enter, Nick senses danger. Suddenly, Kevin's thugs, Lyle and Tractor, ambush them, knocking Nick unconscious and kidnapping Annie and Billy. They throw Nick and the boy into the back of a van. Annie is forced to cooperate. En route to Las Vegas, Nick regains consciousness. He hears the thugs throw his cane out the window and instructs Billy to remember the spot. Nick then sets a bag on fire, filling the van with smoke. Lyle opens the door, and Nick attacks, freeing them. Annie takes the wheel, and they escape. Nick later retrieves his cane, accidentally stepping on Annie's sunglasses. Just then, the thugs reappear. Nick takes the wheel, and with Billy giving directions, he crashes the thugs' car into traffic. Though the enemies escape unharmed, Nick and Billy slip away. Annie brings them to her friend Colin's house for safety. The group spends the night there, and the next morning, Nick decides to infiltrate Kevin's operation alone and rescue Frank. Before leaving, Billy calls Nick uncle, showing how their bond has grown. Nick promises to return with Frank. Nick sneaks into Kevin's casino and overhears a conversation revealing plans to kill Frank after he finishes the latest drug batch. After memorizing the access code to the manager's house, Nick draws attention by winning several games in a row. The casino's guard challenges him to go all in on a roulette game, which is rigged. Nick loses, but he hears a sound from the guard's pocket, proof of the scam. In one swift motion, he exposes the cheat, causing chaos. Amid the distraction, Nick sneaks into the manager's home, fights off more guards, and forces the manager, Vince, to take him to Frank, who is working in a nearby lab. Nick and Frank reunite. Frank expresses deep regret over Nick's injury, but Nick reassures him that he holds no grudge and urges him to be there for Billy. Frank destroys the rest of the drug-making machinery, and they both escape. Upon returning to Colin's house, they find him murdered. A note informs them that Annie and Billy have been kidnapped again. If they want them back, they must deliver the drugs to Kevin's mansion on a nearby hill. Nick and Frank, now determined, plan explosives and ascend to the mansion using a cable car. They eliminate Kevin's guards with military precision. Inside, Kevin holds Billy and Annie hostage. He has also hired a Japanese swordsman to kill Nick. A brutal katana duel ensues, ending when Nick knocks the assassin into boiling water, electrocuting him. Slag reappears and shoots Nick, but Nick throws his sword and kills him. Frank confronts and defeats Kevin, saving Annie and Billy. In the end, Annie, Frank, and Billy prepare to move to San Francisco, but Nick chooses to stay behind. As they leave, Billy runs back and hugs Nick, who advises him to always protect his family.